because he did so well, I think Francis also would probably want to box a little bit more as well.
Is that like a concern for you that he did so well that maybe he might slip away, or do you not see that?
No. I mean, we knew that's what he wanted to do as well. So,
It's in the contract, right?
um, right.
Is there anything you could speak to in regards to the PFL purchasing Bellator? Like that's obviously been rumors have been swirling of that for a long time. Is there anything you could tell us on it?
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is that there's still negotiations going on. There's still talks.
And as
Yeah,
far as Jake Paul, right? We obviously saw him sign with the PFL. We saw him in a fight kit recently,
right,
right?
right.
Does that mean maybe he's strapping up to get into that smart cage anytime soon, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, he's training MMA as we speak.
Yeah. How are you, man? How's everything?
Good. Busy but good. It's always good when you're busy.
I would imagine you're busy, man. Obviously, you guys got a lot of stuff going on here, right? You got a big fight week coming up. Obviously, it says it on the shirt, PFL. For anyone who doesn't know, you are the president of the PFL. So obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, right? So what's it been?
Right.
Running around, phone calls, emails, the whole thing?
The whole shebang. On top of that, I coach as well. So,
Yeah.
it's a constant every day, especially with the show coming up next week. Um, but no, it's fun. It's part of what I do and I enjoy. So it's 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 my life, if you will.
Yeah. What is this, like the fifth or sixth one now that you guys got for as far as the PFL championship?
Yeah, this is our fifth season.
Yeah.
2020. Yeah, we ended up. 2020 was a whole, obviously because of COVID at the time.
Right.
So this is technically it's the fifth year, but
Yeah.
PFL it's been around for 6 years already.
Before we get into PFL and whatnot, obviously there's a lot of exciting fights and news to get into, but you were a very entertaining fighter yourself back in the day. That's something that I formerly know you for. I'm sure most people that have been watching formerly know you for that, right? As far as, the K1 days and the whole spiel, right? You've been in
Right.
some wars. I remember just sitting back watching a couple of them and they were truly entertaining. So I got to thank you for that. But when you look back on that, right, just in an overall glimpse, is there anything that sticks with you that is there any moment that still lives with you to this day that you just can't seem to shake from your fight days?
I mean, it's a positive. I mean, every now and then, every now and then, the Mark Hunt and I
Right.
match is one that obviously is to remember because of the way it was fought. Um, but yeah, every year people will repost it or talk about that fight, or if I run into, it doesn't matter where I'm going or where I'm at, whether it's here in the U.S. or around the world, people always bring that fight up, and so um, it's a positive and reminder how
Right.
amazing those times were, and what fight better than the Mark Hunt fight to um, remember those days. You know what I mean? It's. I mean, listen. Again, the fight wouldn't have happened the way it happened without Mark. And so
Takes two to
my
tango.
right, exactly. My hats off to Mark as well because we've seen him as a true warrior over the years, and he's paid his due as well as a mixed martial artist. And so, but yeah, that's the one fight that everybody every year somebody reposes it, and then somebody else reposes it, and then it's just kind of like for about a couple of months that it's that's the repeat.
Right.
But yeah, no, so it's always good to go back to those times and remember how great those times were, and of course the fight itself was what it was with Mark and I deciding to display the not only punching power but also um, being able to take shots from each other.
Right. And I saw you talking about that on some podcast or an interview recently, and I really
Right,
got a kick
right,
out of that, man. That was awesome. When you're
right.
watching some of these fights on the sidelines, as a president does, right? Does it ever get the juices flowing again? Like you want to jump over the cage and just start, you know what I mean? Do you ever want
Oh,
to get back in there all the time when you're watching this?
yeah, yeah, all the time. I mean, fortunately, I'm in the gym 6 days a week, and I still spar 3 days a week. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and
Wow,
it's
man. That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I stay in shape, and you know, I mix it up with the young guns, and it's fun to be able to just keep up with these guys, and able to help them as well in terms of pointing certain things out here and there.
The fact you're even able to say keep up with these young guns, I think that says a lot about you, man. But you know, it's crazy how much combat sports have changed. How from like, you know, the drug testing to the evolution of fighters to the just the way things are. It's wild, right? How much
Right.
has changed.
Well, yeah, and of course, you know, it's always good when the change is positive, right?
Absolutely.
And so I mean, if we look at mixed martial arts itself, nobody thought it would be the way it is today 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
That's for
And
damn sure. Yeah.
so and not only just the evolution of the sport, but the growth of all the fighters. When you know, every striker now knows how to defend a takedown, knows how to scramble, get back to their feet, and every wrestler knows how to how to kickbox and strike and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see because what it does, it just makes the sport even more entertaining.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Obviously, if there's good changes, if it's something that's going to evolve the sport in a positive way, man, I think I'm all for it. And so would, you know, the
Right,
fans. Obviously, whatever helps the sport is always going to be a positive. Speaking of drug testing, right? There was some failed drug test failures for the PFL
right,
this past year. And it looked like you guys took the initiative to sign with USADA, get some of this stuff addressed, right? In a few months
right,
of this
right.
new program, right? How's it been so far with the USADA program as far as their operation? And how important is it to you, you know, to sort of keep the league clean, as you said, right?
Right, right. No, it's really important that all these guys are able to compete at an even level. And
Yeah.
USADA obviously does a massive ad. Of course, at certain states, like Vegas, for example, WADA is the ones that now does the commission testing and whatnot.
Mhm.
And so when these, I think we had something like 9 people pop,
Yeah.
which is a lot, right? That being said, once that happened, it allowed us to make some changes and bring water on board. And so far, this has been great. It's been a positive ad.
As someone who fought years ago, you know all too well about how dangerous that could be, right? It's good to
Yeah,
keep it as safe as possible, as even as possible, more than anything.
right, right, exactly. I mean, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but there are so many fighters I knew that were on, you know, on steroids and whatever,
Mhm.
because they're, yeah, I mean, they said there was drug testing, but when you do a P test, you can, it's really not like testing your blood, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people knew how to mask that and do whatever.
Lots of loopholes. Yep.
Right, right. And the funny thing is, there was a meeting that it was one of the events, and one of the promoters brought up that he thought that every K1 fighter was on steroids and whatnot, and I happened to be in that meeting, and I was like, okay, well, when you say everyone, are you referring to me as well? Because I'm a K1 fighter as well. And he said, but he wouldn't answer me directly. He wouldn't say, yeah. He said, well, I just think all the fighters, you know. And I'm like, and luckily the right hand man to Mr. Ishii at the time was sitting at the table, and I said, "Well, you're the one that gets to see all these." You know what I mean? And so let's hear it. And he said that he goes, he says, to be honest, there's only two people that's always been clean, and um, I'm not going to name who the other person is, but Ray's one of those two. So I'd assume the other guy was Mark. Um, so to see martial arts evolve in the way of skills and whatnot, as well as drug testing, it only protects the fighters. So it's really awesome to, number one, have your starter on board, and number two, to know that all the fighters that are fighting in PFL will be drug tested, and everybody will be, competing at the same level of drug testing, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And amen to that, by the way. And something we brought up a couple questions ago is, that aforementioned 2023 PFL championship, right? Essentially the Super Bowl for you guys each year. Overall,
right.
How excited are you that this card's come together? How excited are you with how it looks on paper? Because it's a fun one, man.
Right. No. When the team and I are putting the card together, it's always, and especially because we had lost so many high-level guys due to the drug testing and whatnot. And so then you just scramble, and hence the reason why we end up having alternates to be able to fill those spots. And by the time the card was said and done and announced, we were quite pleased. The team and I were quite pleased that the card looks solid.
I mean, even given the circumstances, it's crazy how the card turns out, because you wouldn't think that there was any issues that had to be overcome or anything. It's just a solid card in and of itself, right?
Right. Obviously the 6 title fights, even those matchups are solid, and then the add of Kayla Harrison and Ashman Ladd to the card. Ray Cooper and Derek, Bronson. So, the card just got stronger and stronger and stronger as we went along. And by the time we announced it, it was truly a championship-worthy card.
Obviously, you got the big fights like you brought up, Aspen Ladd stepping in on short notice against Kayla Harrison. It's someone she's wanted to fight for some time, right? You even got, again, fights like you mentioned that's flying under the radar a bit. Derek Brunson versus Ray Cooper. Ray Cooper, who, by the way, is expecting to run through Derek. I mean, we had him on recently, so that's going to be exciting. What are your thoughts as far as any sleeper fights, any fights that you think aren't getting enough attention that are, bound to deliver?
Well, obviously the championship, everybody's going to show up because they know what's at stake. The Derek Brunson and Ray Cooper fight, that's going to be a banger.
I love that one.
Right. The return of Kayla Harrison and versus Ashman Ladd, that's going to be a good fight. But even the other fight, I mean, all the undercard fights are great fights as well. So it's definitely a card to look forward to.
This 2023 PFL championship event is taking place in Washington, D.C. It's for the first time for a PFL championship event, at least, right? How exciting is it for you to, to bring the, the big event to that area, right? Because again, this is the big one for you guys.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think our third time being to Washington, but it's our first championship there. So
it's the big one.
Yeah. And every time we were there, I mean, the fans come out and they show up and watch the fight. So it's really, I mean, one is we're excited about it, and two, going back there, and I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure it's almost sold out. The last conference call that we had, I think it was like a week and a half ago, in regards to that. I believe the girls were saying that we're definitely looking to be sold out come fight week. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, it's definitely going to be an exciting one, and I would anticipate that myself. As far as you, right? You've dipped your toe across. You've dipped your toes across 4 different combat sports, right? Let's say you never competed in this space, right? How differently does your approach change as the PFL president? Like, has your fight career impacted your decision making for the job?
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those jobs that you got to understand when you're the guy that's signing fighters and signing contracts and negotiating and looking at talent. You got to know what you're talking about. You also got to be present in terms of training. And so, like I said, I just started up gi again jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I trained with Marcelo Nunez and Ronnie Marks for Guy. I like I said, I competed in different combat sports, kickboxing, MMA, boxing, but to really know the sport and understand the kind of talent that you're looking for, you gotta be in there training and understanding what jiu-jitsu does, what wrestling does, what kickboxing does,
Right.
so on and so on. Is understanding the whole aspect of the game, and so it really does help in terms of making decisions who we sign and who we don't. That being said, I mean, I have fighters that managers sending me fighters that it's 2-20, and I'm like, why? You're looking for the best of the best, and
Right.
that's available, and so that happens from time to time, but it is what it is, and yeah. But again, you gotta train martial arts to fully understand, and especially if you're in the line of work of matchmaking and signing fighters and so on.
Absolutely. You're talking, and you brought up signing fighters multiple times there. On the topic of that, and given its recency, I'd love to get your thoughts on the Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury fight, right? And I got to say,
Yeah.
in my head, I was thinking before the fight, I wasn't predicting this, but I was thinking, like, can you imagine if Francis drops Tyson Fury and like the crowd just erupts and the whole combat world erupts? Not only did
Right.
that happen, he did that, but you could also argue he won the damn fight. So, I mean, just give me your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, right? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I think Francis deserves all the the claps and props because um, I thought he would get outboxed, especially knowing and seeing Tyson Fury box at the highest level against high level boxers.
I agree.
And so that didn't happen. And the fact that Francis went 10 rounds with him, and the fact that he dropped him with the left hook. My thing is that if you had to judge the fight and if you had to judge the fight off the biggest punch of the night, then Francis won the fight because
Sure.
he landed the left hook and dropped him. But yeah, again, the fight was so close. I mean, what did he won by 1 point? Um,
Even if he did win, it was a split decision. I mean, are you kidding me?
Right. And so nobody expected that, and for Francis to do what he did. But I think the biggest thing was that he was patient in there. He didn't go out and over do crazy stuff. He stayed within himself. He was patient. He picked his shots, and went 10 rounds with the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people can say that they've done that, right? And so, I thought Francis did an amazing job.
And I think the big question that MMA fans are really intrigued in is, right, as far as Francis Ngannou in the PFL, is that something you anticipate could happen next for him for his next fight? Or if not, do you anticipate it happening sometime soon? Because I know Francis mentioned that he does want to fight for the PFL quite soon, right?
Right. I mean, that's in that part of the plan is that he would be on his next fight would be an MMA fight in the PFL. And so I think right after the championship is said and done, then the team and I would obviously sit down and make those final decisions, and obviously talk to Francis as well and his camp to see where they're at, and then go from there.
Have you guys kept in contact with Francis throughout, this boxing venture he went on?
Yes. I mean, our team, obviously, I'm not sure if you've seen, but the PFL is obviously, helping to promote Francis through that fight as well, through our social media, through
Of
what we've
course.
done. So, yeah, no, obviously for us, it's backing him all the way, and I mean, again, what he did was incredible, and so we look forward to him fighting in the PFL cage. But again, it's because he did so well. I think Francis also would probably want to box a little bit more as well.
Is that like a concern for you that he did so well that maybe he might slip away, or do you not see that?
No, 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 no. I mean, we knew that's what he wanted to do as well. So,
It's in the contract,
um,
right?
right, and so we were good with that, and I think France is such an athlete that I think he can do both and be successful at it.
Oh, he can definitely do both. And wouldn't that just
Right.
make him an even bigger star crossing over MMA,
Ex-
UFC? I mean, MMA, boxing, it's unbelievable. He could be the star
eh,
of both worlds.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Obviously, there was always a fight that was looming, right? For a long time, it was Francis Ngannou taking on Ngannou-Jones, right? It feels
Right.
like maybe the UFC isn't all for the cross promotion fights, and maybe they think it wouldn't benefit them much, right? But I'm curious what you think, because I haven't heard it from this perspective. What do you think the UFC can gain from a Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones fight? Not the PFL, but what do you think the UFC has to gain from a mega fight like that?
Well, I mean, the UFC is the UFC. They've always been amazing in terms of what they do. You know what I mean? For putting on big fights. When I think who gains the most from it is the fans. Um, is a fight
Absolutely.
that you know what I mean. It's a fight that fans want to see. So, um,
I want to see
I
that
mean,
fight so bad.
right, right, and so again, like I said, the UFC is the UFC.
Yeah.
We know what they do. We know the amazing job that they do. We know that they put on great fights.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think if anybody benefits from it, it's the fans because they get to watch two incredible athletes go at it. Uh, in terms of the fight, but the only difference is that one is a PFL fighter now, and the other is a UFC fighter. But outside of that, in terms of what it would bring, yeah, I'm pretty sure every fan would love to see that fight.
Right. And I know the PFL, you guys have said you're down to make the fight. I know Francis said that you guys are down to make the fight as well.
Right, right, right.
Why do you think the UFC is so reluctant to make it happen? Do you think?
Listen, I don't want to speak for the UFC because obviously they have their own reasons.
Yeah.
But again, like I've had a relationship with the UFC because I coach some of my fights that I coach also fight there as well, and I've had an amazing time there with them. And but so I don't want to speak on their behalf. All I know is that um, fans all around the world would love to see that. I mean, I would love to see that fight happen. You know what I mean?
I just want to see it. That's why I'm asking. But
Right,
yeah, I agree with
right,
you
right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But yeah,
oftentimes, right, there seems to be faces of certain promotions, right, in MMA. Like you could point to him and say, obviously he's the guy, right? For you guys, it's Ngannou. Like that's a pretty easy pick, right? I would say right now.
right.
But outside of Francis, is there anyone in the PFL that you think could really be the face of the company, that you think could really be a big star in the MMA world coming up? And obviously,
I
I
mean,
don't want you to like single out and point them out, right? Because they're almost like
right,
all your babies in a way, right? But
right,
is there
right,
any
right.
fighters that
Exactly.
you think are exciting, that are really going to break into that mainstream and like capture the attention of all fans, not just MMA fans?
I mean, obviously, Kayla is an amazing
Oh, absolutely.
athlete herself.
And you
And
could argue
then
she's done that already.
right, and then if you look at the 155 division, who I felt had impressed me the most this season is Olivier Mercier. The fact that he's now confident with his striking, he's a grappler.
Yeah.
But when he faced up against Shane Burgos, I thought he was going to go bing and shoot right away and try and keep that fight on the ground.
I agree.
But the fact that he was able to, in my opinion, won the first round on his feet against against a striker like a dangerous striker at that, like Shane Burgos.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me. So I think that I think OAM is coming into his own. He's maturing into his game. He's more confident now than he was ever. You know what I mean? And so um, he's a guy that I think if he was to speak out a little bit more and be, he's a very
It's a little
quiet
reserved.
guy, right? Reserved guy, and
His
so
personality, I guess.
right. But I like that kind of personality as well.
Hey, there's nothing
kind
wrong
of
with that.
right, exactly. But he's the guy that I thought in terms of the most improved in the way he approaches his fight this year. He would have to be the guy that stands out. And then you look at 45 Pineda, who everybody thought that Bubba was gonna probably walk through him because of his wrestling, and Pineda just made that fight look like it was a walk in the park. Um, just his confidence level, his striking ability, his takedown defense. Um, yeah, so he's a 145er that's really kind of taking the season this year, and just now he's in the championship. Um, and then of course the guy he's facing is also, and this is a rematch actually, because
Right.
he lost. I believe he lost on a split decision last time.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he's going to want to get that back. But he's another one that I thought stood out as well.
That's going to be exciting. And I love those choices, by the way. Olivier was in the back of my head when I brought up the question, but I think there's a lot of options for you. So I was curious to get your take on that. As far as the super fight division, I think that was something that was announced sort of, around the same time as the Francis signing, or, more or less. Is that something that you could see Francis competing in, that super fight division, or do you think he'll be strictly in the heavyweight division for you guys?
No. 100%. He'll be in that super fight pay-per-view
I guess
division.
that'll be the area where if boxers want to maybe cross over, I guess it'll have to happen there then, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. And as far as Jake Paul, right? We obviously saw him sign with the PFL. We saw him in a fight kit recently, right? Does that mean maybe he's strapping up to get into that smart cage anytime soon, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, he's training MMA as we speak.
Yeah.
I believe the fight that he's been kind of somewhat calling out was the
Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz fight, and I don't know exactly what's going on there, but
yeah,
I believe Nate said that he wanted a rematch in the boxing fight.
I saw that. Yeah.
So
Nate
again,
says a lot of stuff, so I don't know. Right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly where that scenario is, but Jake is also looking to fight on that pay-per-view card.
Let me ask you this. Do you think he would do far better in MMA than people give him credit for? Because I think a lot of people just write it off immediately, right? They're definitely going to watch, but they write it off. That's for sure.
Well, you know what? When I first heard say that, I was like, okay, you gotta start grappling and you gotta work on your takedown defense. But then I heard another interview lately. I want to say within the last week, that apparently he actually wrestled at college. And so
in Ohio, was it? I thought it was high school, but I didn't know. I didn't even know he wrestled in college. He says he wrestled D1 in Ohio, so I guess whatever that means, right?
So, and if that is the case, then I think it's just more muscle memory for him to kind of get back into it and grind. So to your point, yeah, I think he would do better than what people give him credit for.
What's it been like to work with him in an overall sense? I guess in a business sense, right? Since he signed with you guys, how's the experience been? As president of the PFL, there's obviously in your wheelhouse of things to do, right? So how's the experience been with Jake Paul so far?
Like in terms of he normally, he's a lot of the contracts with Jake Paul has been with our chairman and CEO, and so a lot of those discussions being with him.
Gotcha.
And there's been some talk that he would come to one of the shows. When, I have no idea, but talking to the team, that he's actually quite easy to talk to, and he's quite a level-headed guy. So that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen, we love talking MMA here, and I, at the end of the day, am a fan who just loves talking to you guys. So
Right.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. And of course, if you don't know anything about it, you don't have to give an answer. If you do, but you can't, same thing. But is there anything you could speak to in regards to the PFL purchasing Bellator? Like, that's obviously been, rumors have been swirling of that for a long time. Is there anything you could tell us on it?
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is that there's still negotiations going on. There's still talks. Uh, I don't. I'm saying that. I mean, I'm hearing they're getting close, but that's something that I mean, I heard that 3 weeks ago, and so
Yeah.
right now it won't be done until it's done.
Yeah, you heard so many
But
different reports. I guess you're waiting to
right,
see it
right,
play out, I guess. Is that fair?
right, exactly, and so um, I, I'm hearing it's getting close, but when I can't really, I have no idea.
When you look at PFL, right, one thing that's always stood out to me is the format, right? We rewind
Right.
years back to where World Series of Fighting gets acquired, it transitions to the PFL. What was the thought process behind transforming PFL into a more traditional sports league format? I would imagine it's to stand out, but it's deeper than that, surely, right? What other motivations were there behind that unique decision?
Well, it's a format that I came up with, and I wanted when I
Really, it was your
started the
idea.
yeah. So
Okay.
WSOF, the reason why WSOF's name. So first of all, the format was because I wanted to be different, um, and the season was very similar to what K1 did throughout the years. We fought throughout the year, qualify. Obviously, you had to keep winning, and then you had to qualify for the top 16. And the winning eight from that top 16 goes into a tournament where we fought 3 times in one night.
Right.
Um, and when I looked at it, and as I was putting it together, um, you can't do 3 fights in one night with 5 minute rounds. Obviously, the commission there, because when we talked to the commission, ruling that 5 rounds were the max that MMA was allowed, or as the commissions around the U.S. would allow, and so, and rightful so, because 5 minutes is a long time for 5 rounds. Um, that's how it kind of came about. So I kind of took that format and added the American Wear Sports to it, regular season playoffs and championship. And the championship, I wanted it to be a different night to the playoffs. And that worked out exactly, that worked out in terms of how the season would, fall into having the championship on a different night from the playoffs, where
Right.
in K1, the playoffs and the championship were together in one night. You had to fight 3 times in one night to become champion. But yeah, that's how it kind of came about. And then the name itself, I was watching TV one night, and this is like after we had put the team together, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And as I was just scrolling through the TV, Versus a Poker was on. And right away I went, that's the name of the league,
It does have a
Versus a
nice
Fighting.
ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because I knew that one, we wanted to be different, and two, it was going to be fighters from all over the world. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's how the name came about. Was um, watching Versus a Poker, and I went, okay, that's the name. That's the name, and that's how that's how the WSOF came about. But the format in itself is how WSOF was supposed to start.
Sure.
Um, and I don't know if you remember, but our first press conference, I announced that we were doing $1 million tournament, and then obviously uh, things that happen out of our control, of course, and certain people that said that they were going to come in didn't, and so then we decided to kind of just do
Right.
the normal promotion format until Don Davis and the team came on board, and they loved the idea of the season, and that was the birth of PFL in the season.
Well, hey, man, as we wrap up on time here, I'm glad we were able to go full circle with it. Ray, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate the time. And guys, we should all look forward to that 2023 PFL championship coming up here November 24th, right? It's going to be a fun one. And I'm excited for what's on the horizon for you guys, man. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.